All right, good afternoon, everybody. Sandra Sheffer, President of Democratic Women's Club of Greater Broward. We got a lot going on today. So turns out that everybody with AT&T have no service, right? That's why my co-host, my awesome co-host Narnique Pierre Grant isn't here today. She's gonna try to pop in. Hopefully the service will come in before we get started. And so Laura Kelley, Esquire, attorney and life coach, is on with me, but her sister is in labor. So we don't know what's gonna happen. I don't, I don't know if they're gonna be like, listen, baby's on this way. Is she local or she's out of state?
She's out of state.
Well, she's out of state. Okay, so you can't rush, but
Yeah.
they're gonna be sending you pictures, and they don't let anyone go into the hospital anyway these days.
Yeah.
Cause
And I got AT&T, so I can't get anything. So.
Oh man, see, like, I mean, it's just a lot happening today. Today's that day. We got a lot going on. Mr. DJT 45 got impeached for the second time today. They voted right before we came on. Last week was just mad crazy. And the impeachment is a result of what happened on January the 6th. So we're going to talk about this. We'll have like a little bit of, I don't know if we're going to have different perspective, but we probably see what's happening different ways. You know what I mean? Like she sees it from one perspective and I see it in another way. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to give Laura a chance to introduce herself and we're just going to have this conversation. We probably won't have a full hour show just because a lot's going on. You know, baby might be coming, you know what I mean? Service might go out. We don't know what's going on. We're going to blame it on Trump because he's mad he don't have Twitter. So he probably called one of his friends to just shut everybody down. So maybe T-Mobile and Verizon got next. We don't know.
Well, obviously, this is a big tech. Big tech is attacking our democracy.
You understand? It's everybody's fault but his. It's everybody's fault but his. All right, Laura, introduce yourself. Tell us what's happening.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sandra. My name is Laura Kelley. I'm an immigration attorney here in South Florida, and I'm also a life and mindset coach. I've been watching these last 4 years, but especially this last week in utter shock and dismay. And I don't know that we'll have, I'm sure we'll have different perspectives, but I don't think we'll have maybe different opinions in general about what's going on. But it shocks me, for example, what my representative in Congress has done. It shocks me with what our senators have done, particularly Rick Scott. And I'm at a point where I just cannot, I've never been able to remain silent, but at this point I feel particularly motivated for change. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, we definitely need some change. And, you know, one of the things that we talk about too is how like in 2022, like that election cycle basically starts right now, right? Because not only can Marco Rubio, should not go back to the Senate because, you know, he's complicit in this nonsense too. He was one of the folks who was talking about, you know, the election was stolen and they should give the 10 days. And it wasn't until people were dying on the Capitol steps that he was like, you know, when they went back to vote, he was like, well, okay, so yeah, I'm not going to push this, you know, any further because of what happened. But, you know, Rick Scott was still like, we won't care. We're going to still do this. But, you know, we can't have that kind of leadership, right? And then we have a governor who, good Lord, he makes, I just don't even know what to say. I don't know how to explain it. I just don't understand what he's doing. He's out here endangering folks' lives because he's lying about COVID, won't do anything, trying to push, I'm just like speechless when it comes to him because of all the things he's trying to do. None of it is for the betterment, I think, of the residents of the state of Florida. So I'm going to just say, and, you know, we're going to put it out there in the universe because I saw that you had posted that you might consider running for office.
Look, I'm a little impulsive, just a little bit, you know, I'm a little impulsive, but I have to say this. Mario Diaz-Balart has been our representative here in the Doral area. He's in the 25th Congressional District. He's been our representative, I believe, since 2003. Okay. And he ran unopposed last election. I think he ran unopposed the election before that. I haven't done all the research to find out how long he's been unopposed. but he must believe that he's not going to be held accountable because of his name recognition. I'm sorry, I get a little bit angry
okay,
about
get
this.
like that, because this is stuff that we should really be mad about. It needs to fire us up to do something different.
I tell you, because it is unacceptable to me that he could perpetuate this lie that there was election fraud.
Mm-hmm.
There was no election fraud. There were no irregularities. He said in his, he put out a statement after the attack saying that, you know, oh, because people were, these elections were made by, this election was won by razor thin margins. Do you know when there was an election won by razor thin margins? In 2016, where the president was elected having lost the popular vote.
Mm-hmm.
And that is unacceptable. And what they're arguing about in Arizona is just complete nonsense. The legislature makes laws and the courts interpret those laws. And the courts interpreted those laws and the due process of the Constitution of the United States and determined that it was necessary in a global pandemic to extend the period of voter registration.
Mm-hmm.
That means more people allowed to vote. That's pro-democratic. There's no fraud, no fraud. And it pisses me off that my own representative, all three of them, would perpetuate this vicious lie against representation, against democracy, and frankly, against our republic. Yeah. And I will not stand for it. I will not stand for it. And I will be the fly in his ass for the next 2 years. And if it's not going to be me who runs against him, I hope the Florida Democratic Party does some massive work, because this cannot stand. And I'm super disappointed and disgusted with the Florida Democratic Party. I have to say that in general.
Well, they have new elected, they just elected like a new chair. Manny Diaz is the new chair for the Florida Democratic Party. I think Judy Blunt, it's a couple other folks that they have on that. You know, I don't know what that means, but we'll see.
You know what?
How that go.
I was reading, because I'm in Doral. And we have this part of our population here that appears to be pro-authoritarian. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's this, and they're on our local message boards, and they're spouting pro-authoritarian messages, almost saying that Trump should be president for life.
For life.
It's truly frightening. Yeah. I mean, that's essentially what they're saying.
You know, to me, it's like, okay, you know, a lot of times people want to have these personality contests, right? Because you like the person doesn't mean that they should have that job. Just go try to find a way to be their friend. Don't give them power, right? Because seriously, if you like him, go find a way to be his friend, join a club that he's in.
Go golfing.
You know, join a book club, do something like that. But don't let this man be president,
Mar-a-Lago,
right? And have a job that he doesn't even want to do. He was not being the president for all of the people, okay? Like, COVID has been going on. People have been dying. This man has been acting like it's not happening. It's just like, what y'all worried about? I mean, sure, 3,000 people died yesterday. He has not said one thing about it. I think we're at 380,000 people dead right now. We have hospitals that have no ICU bed space. Has this man came out and said one thing? He doesn't want this job. He wants the perks of the job, right? And so because you like him and because he likes the perks of the job, you don't make that person president for life when people are literally losing their lives, losing their job, losing their livelihood every day because of the poor decisions that he's making and his lack of ability to lead.
I completely agree with you, Sandra. And he's run this country like he runs his business. He's the CEO and he just wants to be a figurehead. He has no idea what it means to actually lead, to make real decisions. And he's run this country into the ground, just like he ran his business ventures into the ground. You talk to me about Atlantic City, you talk to me about a Trump University, Trump steaks, Trump wines, all the things he's run into the ground. And look at where we are as a country. He has almost destroyed our democracy.
Yes, not only, and he's one of the only presidents in God knows how long that left office with less jobs than he started, right? But he always was like, I'm the businessman. I know how to do this. I can do that. But you're leaving with less jobs than you started, right? That's not a measure of success. But you know what he'll tell you is like, oh, the stock market is at 31,000. Yeah, that's for the top 1%, right? The most, you know, some of us got money in the stock market, but a lot of us don't. Most people don't have money in the stock market. So if that's your measure of you being a successful president, you failed 99% of the people that live in the United States. And that's not okay. That's not a good.
No, and I have money in the stock market that I play around with. Like, it's just fun. Like, I don't, just a little bit of money. I don't have it's not like I'm not making money off the stock market. That's not how I produce an income. And that's not how anybody I know produces an income.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not Main Street. He's concerned only about Wall Street, and it doesn't even matter. It has nothing to do with him anyways. The stock market success has nothing to do with him. It's globalization. I had somebody again to go talk about these local message boards say Trump is the greatest businessman in the world. What kind of insanity is that? He's not even the top 300 richest people in this country.
No.
Have you heard of Elon Musk? Just Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, the philanthropist who gave away more money in 2020 than Trump's entire net worth. Right. She gave it away. Right. Mackenzie Scott, she deserves to be recognized for that. Mackenzie Scott.
And the other thing people don't realize is like all these hotels with his names on them, they're not his hotel. He has licensing deals, right? So when his name used to be a good thing, right? People would be like, oh yeah, let me just put your name on it. And he would get money because they would put his name on a hotel. He hasn't constructed any of those things, right? And then and so that's why it's all licensing deals. Now his name is garbage. So his name is gonna go off those hotels because ain't nobody trying to stay at no Trump hotel when he over here letting people go and threaten to hang the vice president and kidnap and kill the secretary of state. So I don't know why you would want that name on your hotel, because that's
let's just say foolishness. All those insurrectionists were flying coach. So
okay,
that's all I'm gonna say.
And there's a video of one of the guys who's mad that his name was on a no-fly list. He goes like, they trying to ruin my life. No, homie, you ruined your own life when you left your house and went over there to participate in this craziness. Ain't nobody trying to ruin your life. And if there's a they that's trying to ruin your life, you are that they. Okay, you're the they that's trying to ruin your life.
What's truly frightening about the no-fly list is actually, and that's true, that I read that the FBI they have been following domestic terrorism for quite some time, and they actually had a number of people put on a no-fly list so they could not fly to DC. I think they said that 15 people were prevented from flying to DC. Mm-hmm. But I just say, imagine what those people would have done. And here's another thing. Exactly. Those people who flew in, because they flew in, they didn't have weapons. Let's just say, imagine if people had more time to drive, they would have had weapons.
Yeah.
They had weapons. They would have had firearms. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And the thought of that, just imagine what that's like. And then another thing, then the other thing that was going on is that, some people are talking about how that may have been an inside job. I don't want to make no accusations that it might have been a whole inside job, but there was definitely some folks that were there that were okay with what was happening, and they allowed some of that to go down. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you. I really hope that's not the case, but considering that one of these congresswomen apparently was live tweeting the location of Nancy Pelosi, that's alarming. Here's what I have to say about that. It's kind of like, why were these white supremacist insurrectionists live streaming their attack on the Capitol? Why were they live streaming their own crimes? And the reason why they were doing that is because they thought they were going to get away with it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And I think the same thing. I think there are people who thought this was going to go down the way they thought it was going to go down, and they are sorely mistaken. Mm-hmm. And the full force of the FBI, the Secret Service, and whoever else is going to, and Congress itself is going to fully invest. I mean, you think that we had hearings over Benghazi? Mm-hmm. Oh, I know that Nancy Pelosi, don't mess with me, right? Don't mess with me. Uh-huh. Nancy Pelosi is not going to play. We're going to find out who did what, when, who knew what, when. Kevin McCarthy already said he knew that Trump was aware of what was happening and did nothing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and he said he finally had to tell him, said, listen, sir, there was no election fraud. You've lost. This is over, you know. But now he's saying this after it's like people are scared. They got metal detectors like in the office for the senators to come through and all of that kind of stuff. Why did it have to get this bad, right? Like, why did it have to get this bad? So, I mean, it was incredible. And believe me, when I saw some of the photo, I was like, this can't be real. Like this cannot be real. How is it that that happened? And then not only are these people now afraid, we have some of the Democratic senators who've tested positive for COVID because folks that were in that room, because they were in a room for like 4 to 6 hours because they couldn't get out because of all of the craziness that would happen, refused to put a mask on. And so now you have the 75-year-old rep from New Jersey that's COVID positive. Jay Paul is COVID positive, and I think another man from Illinois. And it's going to be more to come because people won't do something as simple as wearing a mask. Yeah, we're stuck in a room with no windows for 4 hours. Put a mask on. Okay. And they can't even do that. But I mean, if they're willing to support a bunch of crazy people coming to the Capitol, then of course they're not going to put a mask on. You know what I'm saying? Because like what's worse? You can't expect them to put a mask on if they're okay with folks coming, trying to storm the Capitol and have like something to hang Mike Pence. And then they had like Molotov cocktails and, people had zip ties. Like, are you kidding me? Like, are you really, really kidding me? Like, how is this America? How is this okay? And somebody's going to do some mental gymnastics and make this make sense to them. That's not word. I see her coming in. She's like, make that make sense to me. How you doing?
You made it.
Yes, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. Yeah, make that make sense.
It's AT&T is shoddy, just horrible. Yeah. We're gonna have a review of this segment. This is horrible. So
I blame but we can hear you.
I blame the impeached president.
Wait, the second impeached president, the only one in American history, impeached twice, 10 days before you leave your job.
Are we great yet?
We're going to be great. We're going to build back better.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. So your thought. So one of the things that people keep talking about is how, like, if these were people of color, whether they be like people of African descent, or whether that's like just black dark-skinned people from East and West Africa, from North Africa, Middle Eastern folks, that would have been a different scene. What do you have to say, Laura?
I completely agree. It would never have gotten that far. The Capitol wouldn't have been left unprepared. I mean, we saw the images of the National Guard on the Lincoln Memorial. It would never have gotten this far. So if there was even something planned, there would have been preparation. And I think that's quite clear. These disingenuous comments made by the GOP representatives today, comparing this attack with protests this summer, is just so completely ludicrous, so disingenuous. And I think anybody who has any sort of open mind, any kind of self-awareness or insight can see how strikingly different the response was. When you see these protesters beat a police officer with an American flag, and they're still the ones, they're carrying Blue Lives Matter flags, beating a police officer.
And a white police officer at that, right?
Because
like a white police officer at that.
Which just shows you it's not about the police at all.
No, it's not.
It's never been about the police. It's never been about blue lives. It's always been about oppression. It's always been about. It's always been about white supremacy.
Right. And so so when they say like, if it was black people, my thing is always like, black people wouldn't have did that, right? You know how sometimes I was just like, y'all talking about like, if it was black people, listen, I could not even imagine, right? Like, I just can't imagine Black people even doing that. So this whole thing about, if it was Black people, they would have got shot in the face. We'd have been like, yeah, we ain't trying to do that. And it was, and when I say this, there's an image of this one Black guy standing like in the I guess in the hall, whatever, in the center room, and he's just standing there, and you can tell he's like, yeah, this was a mistake. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know how I got here. I mean, like, he has this look on his face like, yo, what the F? Like, how did this happen, right? And so, like, even I don't know who he got to like goose him up or boost him up to go do this foolishness, but once he got in the room and saw what was happening, you could just see he was standing there like, yo, like, I'm in trouble, right? Kind of thing. So to me, I'm like, yeah, they'd be like, if it was Black, I don't think Black people would have did that, right? Because
was he Antifa
talking you out of it? Like, this, I don't see it happening. Not all them Black people going there to do that. Nah, I just don't see it. What do you think, Narnique? We going there?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Slow, fast, is fine.
It's slow. We hear you slow.
So. Okay, slow. The thing with that is that I'm just not understanding why people are shocked. That's where my confusion is. I'm confused as to why people are shocked at this behavior. This has always been their way of doing things, and keep bringing up Black Lives Matter. We would never do that. That's not something we do. We don't do that. We will burn shit down on the other end because that's part of the establishment, but we're not going to go take lives, even though they've been taking ours for how long. Mm-hmm. And then the third thing that just doesn't like resonate with me is the fact that the conservatives are sitting there still doubling down and making excuses. That's the point I just can't, that boggles my mind. And to have an impeachment today and not every single Republican say, you know what, this has gone too far and we agree with this impeachment is beyond me. And that only shows me that this will be more of the same, and it's gonna take a lot more than people of color coming in droves voting to make sure that this whole narrative change.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I wonder, if I can ask you both, have you been listening to these corporations who say they're not going to support any of the GOP representatives who voted to not to certify the election? So I most recently read that Disney said they would not donate to any campaigns. We've had a number of other corporations that have said they're not going to contribute to any more campaigns. And then a bunch of other corporations are going to reevaluate their contributions. And what your thoughts are on that.
So I think that's a start, because a lot of times especially even when you have like a lot of Democratic candidates or some people who would want to run that would be really effective. What the problem is, the money, right? Like, they just don't have that same kind of money in order for them to run, because elections have gotten like so expensive. Like, those 2 seats in Georgia turned blue, but that took like some insane amount of money for those folks to get those jobs. And that's crazy that it should cost that much for you to go get a job that you're supposed to be representing the people, right? Like, I mean, the whole thing just doesn't make any sense. But I heard one of the folks, I believe it was on MSNBC, those companies, not only do they want to stop funding GOP candidates, they don't even want to give money to Democrats, and when he was saying like, well, what did Democrats do? Like, why we not getting no money? Like, we didn't do anything, so part of that is like, there's like, well, I ain't giving money to nobody. So when you decide that you're not going to give money to anybody, that means that you really want to still give your money to the Republican, right? Mm. And since you can't give the money to the Republican, you're not going to give it to the person that might be on the right side of this particular issue. So to me, that's not respectable, right? That you just like, I'm not giving money to nobody. Oh, what do you mean? People need money in order for them to run. Don't punish the people that did something wrong, not the folks that stood up for the right thing, right? Then the other thing with all of this politicking that's been going on, what I've come to see is that a lot of these folks that are claiming to be public servants, they're not public servants, right? They're there for their own personal gain, their own personal interests, right? Because if you're a public servant and you're here for the people, I mean, even all the people, there's no way you could be okay with what happened, right? And then you're not going to stake your decision on whether or not you're going to vote for impeachment based on the fact of if you can get elected again the next time, right? And a lot of them are making decisions based on like, well, if I turn my back on Trump right now, then, you know, I'm gonna lose his base and I might not get my job again. So that's what it's about. So you're not there to serve the public. You're not there to serve the public, because even if you have all those Trump supporters in your town, you got other folks that are not Trump supporters in your town. And if you're doing the work and you're really doing the work of the people, you should still be able to get elected despite them, right? And if your decision on whether or not you're going to do the right thing is based on whether or not you're going to hurt his feelings and the feelings of people that support him, then you're not there to be a public servant. You're not there to be a public servant. And that has been made very clear in the last couple of weeks of what's going on, especially the ones that came up with that lie about the election fraud. Y'all just mad that people just started voting by mail. Republicans have been voting by mail forever, right? And just because they expanded who can vote by mail and now Democrats are taking advantage of it, all of a sudden the system is flawed. It wasn't flawed when you were using it. You understand? So all of that, I mean, it's just, y'all, they straight up showing their true colors. And the last point I want to make on that is the fact that no one has said that the only votes that this president got a problem with is the ones that came out of Black communities. Okay. That's a whole nother thing right there, right? It ain't everybody ballot is wrong. It's just the ones that, you know, that was in Kenosha and the ones that's in the Atlanta area, you know what I mean? And parts of, where the Native American Hispanics live in Arizona, you know, like, so those are, and the ones in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. So you mad that Black people decided that they didn't want to support you. And why should they, right? Why should they? What have you done, you know what I'm saying, to represent the interests of anybody of color? And you mad because they're not going to just vote for you or support you, even though everything you've done has been contrary to their very existence? Get out of here. So that part right there is what the conversation really should be, is that he's like, y'all, he's basically saying, y'all, ain't y'all 3/5 humans? Why y'all out here voting and putting me out of a job? Because you're not even 100% human. You're not a whole person anyway. So why you 3/5 humans are out here voting me out of office? Okay. So that's how I see that, I think
I'll just add on your thing is that, remember, we're in a cancer culture now. So all these businesses that have decided that they're going to pull away from the Republicans and so on, they realize that Black people spend the most money. And if we decide that, oh, you decided that you're going to, support this candidate, well, we're not going to support you anymore. And that has been a movement in the people of color's movement that's been really helping and really pushing our agenda by sitting there and making a conscious decision not to support certain businesses. That's the other thing. They want to distance themselves, because it's not only us who are saying we're not going to do business with them, is white allies who also are saying they're not going to be doing business with them. There was a post, you remember this, Sandra? I think you probably saw it too, Laura. There was a post about Publix giving DeSantis $100,000. The whole post, people were like, oh, well, we're going to go to Aldi, we're going to go to Costco.
I love Aldi.
Everybody has decided that, you know what, we're not messing with Publix no more. And
no, I'm not.
I'm done. I have to find me another grocery store, child. I'm trying to find me a Black-owned grocery store if I can find one. Mm-hmm. But I think these companies, what they realize is if you're attached to the demagoguery that was going on in the administration, then they have that stain on them too. So the further I can distance myself, the better my business will be. But at the end of the day, I didn't hear about the ones you were saying, Sandra, that they're not going to give anybody any money. But that's off too, because then I don't mess with you.
That's the whole problem, because this is the thing. One of the things that, at least people of color, when you gotta pay attention to when it's the show and when it's really to work, right? Because they do all of this stuff like, yeah, we looking like we do, you know, because we're gonna look the part, right? So they just put on a show for you, but in the background, you know what I'm saying, they're still giving power to like all these other individuals. Because if you just stop giving the GOP money and you don't give Democratic candidates money, but the GOP has the ability to still raise more, what if you pretty much haven't changed anything? You're just giving the appearance as if you're doing something and you're supporting people of color, but you're really not doing that. So we need to really just don't get caught up in the show, because they'll say all of this stuff publicly and they won't really put any real substantive action behind the words that are coming out of their mouth. And that's what we got to pay attention to. Yeah, you're not giving them no money, but you need to go ahead and pay that other, you know, give some money to that candidate of color that's really going to come out here and put in this work to really truly be a public servant and represent the people of their districts.
I just think that racism is so deep rooted and so deep rooted, and this is like the DNA of this country, that no matter what you say, it's not going to change them unless something drastic happens. So Capitol, the debacle at the Capitol was something drastic for them, not for us, because that didn't surprise me at all. But they won't change unless something drastic happens. And unfortunately, we're in the minority and they're in the majority. And when you have that kind of mindset, because I'm
only talking about the United States, that's not a global truth. That's not
no, we're talking about the United States. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it in context. Yeah, I'm keeping it in context. We're the minority here, but not only just the minority in terms of the people, but the mentality. Because just this thing, you know, while Biden got 80 million votes, he got 75 million that think like him. That is.
I don't buy that though. I don't actually think all of those people voted for him. I think there was a huge number of folks that voted against Kamala, right? Because most people, well, I ain't gonna say most people, I don't want to see how many people, but I think there's some people who believe that Joe Biden is not gonna be the president for 4 years, right? And for those who don't think he's gonna make it those 4 years, I'm not wishing nothing on the man, right? I'm just
no, but
that's a legit conversation, and that's a reality that we need to think of, that, you know, he may not be here 4 years. And some people had this thing, they're like, yo, that dude might not be here for the whole 4 years. And if he's not, this Black Indian woman about to be president of the United States, right? And they're not okay with that, right? Because there's still a lot of sexism going on. So I think there, in that 75 million, there were some people that had that conversation with themselves, and they be like, just in case Joe Biden kicks the bucket before 2024, we don't want this Black Indian woman being the president of the United States. And so we're going to go ahead and, you know, put this clown in office. And just in case,
you know, we had
Pence might be the president, but it won't be her.
We had this conversation when it was John McCain and what's her face. That's it. Well, I mean, that was the thing then too. But you know, here's the thing: is like I also think we need to, when an abuser projects, we need to listen. Yeah. And when Donald Trump said the election was rigged, he wasn't lying.
Yeah,
he wasn't lying. The election was rigged for him, you know, and that's why he's so mad that they lost. He's like, we did everything we could to win this election. How could we lose? We tried to suppress the vote. I
stacked the courts even.
Exactly.
I stacked the courts too. I had all my bases covered, all my bases covered.
So I want us to remember that too. So when he says the election was rigged, the election was rigged. It was stacked against us, and we still won. And I think we have to take a little bit of heart in that. Also, he was an incumbent president, and these are normally not elections that incumbents lose. And we gain the Senate. I think, you know, and I think what you said about this being a drastic shift, a drastic measure is absolutely right. And I'm choosing to believe that this is an opportunity for great change. I'm choosing to believe that because I have to believe that. But Narnik, what you said is so true. You said, I don't know why people are shocked. And I'm like, I am shocked, but you're absolutely right. Why would I be shocked? What did I think was going to happen? What did I think was going to happen? When these people were saying, we're going to take back the election, we're going to fight. I was listening to Rudy Giuliani that morning. with my assistant. I was listening to it and I said, trial by combat, this MF, you know, I was mad. I was like, what does he think? I'll take him. I can take him. I was like, I posted, I was like, I was listening to Don Jr. talking about be the hero, don't be the zero. And I was like, these lunatics, what did we think was going to happen? What was their end game? This had to be the end game from the beginning. This was the end game.
He had a whole setup with TV, with music playing, and people watching. So he knew that's what was going to happen. He was ready to watch it. He sat back and watched it happen.
If someone's ideology of someone being caught during combat as a loser, right? Yes. I just mentioned to Sandra the other day in Germany, there was someone who was talking about a serial killer in Germany. And one of the things that they gave a history about is that his father was taken prisoner. And apparently that is frowned upon in Germany, for you to be taken in prisoner. And then when you come back from combat, you are like, you know, a shit stain. Nobody want to deal with you. So this is the same man that said he didn't like John McCain because he was caught. And you have to put things in perspective and in context when you're dealing with Trump. You know how you say something to somebody, oh, that's not what I meant to say. This man is deliberate with what he says. He may be dumb, but he's deliberate with what he says, right? And so you know how if you're angry about something and you tell a person, well, you're allowed to be angry. There's a difference between telling somebody you're allowed to be angry or you have a right to be angry. There's a difference, right? There's a really material difference in that. So when you see a man talk down upon members of Congress, people who went to war, you know, he was at the place where he says, oh, why do I have to be around these losers talking about people who went to war for this country? Mm-hmm. That's why I said I don't understand why people are shocked that they were scaling the walls. They killed 2 police officers. They maimed
the other one committed suicide.
I mean, it's just a progression, and it infuriates me that conservative Republicans will sit here and have the audacity to resign their positions when you allow this school to run amok 5 years. To run amok, and now we're supposed to be thankful that you resigned your position. Y'all need to go have.
You know, there was I apologize that I can't remember his name today, but there was a GOP, a Democratic congressperson today, and he was saying, I've had personal conversations with GOP representatives saying, in tears, he said in tears, those are his words, saying that I want to vote for impeachment. I want to vote against him, but I feel like my life would be in danger. And he said, and I was thinking the same thing, when you swore your oath to the Constitution to represent the people of the United States, are you not willing to give your life for that? Our military people are. Are you not serving the people?
They're not.
If you are too afraid to do your job, then you are a coward of the highest level. And he's like, well, now you know how it feels, because our Democratic representatives have had their lives online for how long?
Yep.
For how long?
Yeah. So not only that, so one of the other things, you hear all these people talk, and they were in a very threatening, frightening situation, and now all of a sudden they have these revelations and everything, and I'm just like, and people of color, we operate in a space with a lot of fear all the time, right? Like when there's a cop behind us, we're like, oh my God, make sure my hand is at 10-2 so I don't get pulled over. Then when we get pulled over, you be like, oh my God, let him just give me this ticket and don't take my life away. So we're just doing regular stuff on a day-to-day basis. We're operating in a space of fear. And so they had this happen to them, some of it at their own making. Like, y'all let this get like this, right? Like, you guys had time and chance and to do something about this, and you chose not to do anything about it. And then this happens, and all of a sudden you're like, oh Lord, we scared. Y'all got security. People ain't going to work. You know what I mean? They got the metal detector in the building. They got 15,000 National Guard, whatever, because you guys are afraid. But people of color been telling you that, listen, cops are gunning us down every day, right? And this is the thing where they got to check out. In that group of people that went into the Capitol, there were police officers that were working right now, right? They were in their jobs right now, right? You had HR people that's in HR working right now in HR, right? You had all these executives that have those jobs right now. So when someone of color, attorneys working those jobs right now, representing people of color, supposed to be anyway. And so when a person of color go and have an interaction with them and they're saying like, yo, I'm getting these vibes. I don't think I'm getting this job because I'm Black. I think I'm being treated different. And you be like, oh no, it's all in your head. You know, you guys are making it up. And then you find out that these dudes was like trying to storm the Capitol, trying to kill Nancy and Pence. And so I wonder if now they see like, you know what, maybe these Black people aren't making it up. And maybe it's not all in their head, because this is happening for real. Because if a person that have those positions and they're willing to risk their job in their life to go and storm the damn Capitol, because foolish ass, I was trying not to curse, because foolish Donald Trump told them to go. You don't think, you know, that they have mastered how to act like they down with the cause and they good with the people, and they're out here with their foot on people of color's necks? Y'all need to see that, because they probably tricked everybody at their job. They was like, oh my God,
even children, your children, you had a whole school board member who chartered a whole bus from North Carolina. A school board member chartered a whole bus from North Carolina to send people down to storm the Capitol. This is somebody who's in charge of your babies. Okay, these are the people that's supposed to see no color, right? Well, you said lawyer, Laura. Y'all blind. Y'all supposed to be the law supposed to be blind, right? It's not supposed to see color. It's just supposed to see the law. You have those people. There's even one police officer who was in charge of, get this, was in charge of
diversity, something like that.
Diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, he's in charge of that. He over there. So this
for the NYPD.
Yeah, and he's over there. And then when people tell you that they getting choked out, they can't breathe, the cops shooting before they asking questions, like, oh no, no crime was committed. They didn't violate your civil rights. But that same person is trying to storm the Capitol, and you're gonna try to act like people of color are just making it up and that they don't feel what they really feel. So I don't know. Maybe this is a day where they'll understand that a little bit better.
No.
I don't know.
Somebody in the chat. Representative Jason Crow, is that his name?
Yeah, Jason Crow. Yeah.
Yeah, Jason Crow. That's the thing or whatever. I'm just not. For me, I feel like miss me with the BS with everything.
Matt Gaetz is on the House floor with a double nozzle on right now. I guess he's worried about tear gas or something, or I don't know. Now he really believes the corona. Who knows?
He's another.
Who knows?
He's another one that irritates me, because he comes for people, and then he doesn't remember that he was caught with driving under the influence. Like, he's doing a whole bunch of stupidness too, but then yet still it's like the pot caught in the kettle black. And this is what they do. They constantly do that. It's okay for me, but you can't do it, right? It's like it's like the parent that says, do as I say, not as I do. You can't do it like that. That's not how.
It's an abuser. It's like an abusive relationship. It's the abuser and an abusive relationship projecting. And they know they're guilty, so they blame it on you. It's like when you point the finger, there's 3 fingers pointed back at you every single time. So every time I see Matt Gaetz say something, I'm like, oh, I know that you're doing so much worse. You're doing so much worse, And you said, are people going to see? Some people are going to see, but there are people, like I said, still in my community, that's where I keep my eyes on. Because listen, I bought fireworks. I was hoping to use I didn't buy them for New Year's. I got them for January 5th. And I was like, oh, we probably won't get a response. We probably won't have an election result. So then I was like, okay, I'll save them for January 20th. And I'm like, I'm not gonna pop fireworks in my Trump neighborhood. Like, I believe that would be, I believe that could be used as a pretext for some kind of firearm related activity. And I was like, I just don't need to be, it's just fireworks. There's no reason to rub people's noses in our victory, you know, especially when tensions are so high. But I was reading in our local community that there's Spanish language radio, which, you know, that's one thing, is like there are different communities where the radio is still, you know, it's more important than the internet. And so there's still a number of communities that really utilize like especially, you know, the Latin American community in South Florida, the Spanish language. Yeah. And yeah. And these radio stations are perpetuating these lies that it was Antifa, that it was infiltrated by Black Lives Matter. I mean, look at the freaking people who stormed the Capitol, but still, you know, and I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about how the election went down this year in Florida. And I really have to wonder what our party was doing to counter those messages that were happening on Spanish language radio, and what we're doing right now to counter those messages in Spanish language radio. Because I mean, you know, it's same thing. I mean, look, you know what? I'll say it too. Not just Spanish language radio, you know, English language, Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, you know? And it's honestly, I'm reminded of the dehumanization and the language that was used in Rwanda and has happened in other parts of the world to just perpetuate lies and rumors and dehumanization, and the way people just believe these incredibly outlandish, ridiculous, absurd things. And it just, I know it probably shouldn't shock me, but I think that there's a percentage of the population that is larger than I ever imagined that lives in an alternate reality.
So
that just lives.
Yeah. So some of that is like, you know, some of the criticism that Trump gave of the media, there's something to that, right? So I'm listening, because I don't want to say I'm reading it because I'm doing an audio book of Simone Sanders. She's going to be one of the press people on the Biden campaign, and she did Bernie in 2016. And and there's something about like, I won't shut up. Like, that's the name of the book. And one of the things she talks about is like, you know, when the pundits come on, because news have changed, right? Like everybody used to watch the news in order for them to get their information. But now, especially when you do with cable news, yeah, they got the newscasters, but it's basically the guests that they allow to talk. She says one of the things that they do even when you sign a contract to come on, they don't ask you whether or not you're going to tell the truth. That's not one of the requirements. One of the requirements is not, they don't ask you whether or not, they're not telling you go lie, but they're not saying, listen, whatever you say, that the words that come out of your mouth have to be the truth. So you're not required to tell the truth anymore. So that's part of the problem. And, you know, especially if you're dealing with people from the islands or whatever, you know, when people have certain positions, they expect you to tell them the truth and be honest, because you have a position of authority. Somebody gave you some responsibility to give them information. So they figure the information you're giving them is good information, right? Like y'all went and got these fancy degrees and all of this kind of stuff to provide information to people. So they want to believe that what you're telling them is the truth. And that's part of the disservice, is that these networks are allowing people to come on and say some stuff that's not necessarily true, because they're more concerned about ratings and people coming in and getting advertisers, as opposed to the information that they're disseminating to the public are the facts, right? So I think that's some of it. But do individuals have some sort of responsibility? They need to take some ownership of what they learn and know, whatever they do. But if you're bombarded with information and it's coming from all different directions, it's hard for you to figure out like what's true or not. And then people are gonna wanna take on what makes them feel better, right? So if somebody's telling you a lie and it kind of it goes in what you, it goes with the way you want to feel. Because a lot of times people don't want to face the truth about the bad parts of themselves. So if somebody out there is telling you something, and then, you know, you be like, yeah, I did kind of feel that way. And they're telling you, they're kind of saying, oh, it's okay for you to have these thoughts. Because again, most of us, you know, we don't want to face the facts about the, you know, the flaws that we have in our character. So if you're having someone that telling you like, oh yeah, you know, it's okay to think that way because yes, that happened, and people are going to hold on to that. And then the other thing too is that you literally can put yourself in a space where you're only listening to the things that you want to listen to, right? Like you don't have to, like, I was like, I'm gonna try to listen to Fox News. A minute into that, I can't do it. I'd be like, Lord, I can't do it. So I can't even hear what the foolishness they're talking about. But if that's what someone wants to hear and they're listening to those lies all day, there's no reason for them to go listen to CNN and MSNBC. And I have to tell you that I listen to different types of news, but when I tell you, if I tell you that I could sit and listen to 30 minutes of Fox, I'm lying to you because I cannot. Right. And so people can put themselves in this space where they're only hearing the things that they want to hear. And that's how you get people leaving their house in San Diego to come to Washington, D.C. to engage in some nonsense and then lose their life.
Well, you know, the thing is when people watch CNN or MSNBC on the other end, they think that they're delusional, that our side is delusional, right? So one thing, listen, I did try to look at Fox News when the Capitol thing happened, because I really want to see what they're going to say. When that lady said, the one with the blonde hair and the short, when she said that, she said about something, 99, even more than 99% of those people are all peaceful protesters. I said, okay, first of all, do you know the difference between 99% and over 99%? Like, it's just the way that they flip the script. So I'm watching it because I really wanted to get a perspective of what they think what was going on, right? And for them to say, oh, 99, all of them had like the same, if you look at the clips, they all had the same exact wording. 99% of those people out there are peaceful protesters. And she said, I'm gonna go ahead and say over 99%. And they all said, I'm gonna go ahead and say over 99%. And when you look at it and then they say, we have reports. They are saying, and first of all, I always have this issue with Sandra. I'm like, who are they? Who are these they we talking about? But they'll say, well, they said that it's Antifa and Black Lives Matter people who are blending in. Where you get your information from? I'm just trying to figure that out. And so I want to try to understand where they're coming from. So I try to look at it, but the more you look at it, the more it vexes your spirit. And you're like, I can't watch this. And so it's the same thing with them. They can't watch CNN. They can't watch MSNBC. They can't look at them and say, okay, what they're saying. And the thing about CNN and MSNBC, those are the two I watch. They try to explain it so knowing if they came on their show to see, they would try to understand, because they don't try to bash them too much. They try to say, this is what it is. And they put really all the blame on Trump rather than putting the blame on them. Yeah. The Fox will not only put the blame on the people, but they name Democrats by name, they name different areas by name, and they just make sure they're deliberate. So I do agree with you, Laura, that I could not imagine 75 million people can really believe and think that you had an honest, true election and it was stolen from you with no proof. Like, they didn't need anything. All he had to say was stolen. They didn't need to see proof. They didn't need to. They didn't need to see that. Just a little bit of narrative he was saying. They didn't need to see anything. And that cheat mentality, I honestly felt, and I still do, I feel sorry for them. Yeah, I really do, because you have a lot of them that don't understand what the process is, but is willing to just swallow the trash in the name of loyalty. And that's the saddest thing I've ever seen in my life. It's just sad.
And loyalty to a person, and not loyalty to the republic, for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Like, you know, like, I just, they have no loyalty to this country, and they have shown it time and time again. This was, you know, you see them waving the Confederate flag, and nothing was a more perfect symbol of this movement, because it just shows they're traitors. They don't love this country. They don't love this country because you don't.
Let them tell it. Let them tell it. They're patriots, and the rest of us are traitors.
Yeah, they're the patriots.
This.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So the last thing we want to talk about, we actually ended up having a really good conversation. So one other thing that I want to talk about is that some of the Republicans, we just need to move on and unify the country.
Mm-mm.
I'm like, okay. And as a Black person, I'm like, okay, so when you say that, when I hear that, right, all I'm hearing is like, okay, listen, give my people a pass, right? Just give them a pass. All these people that did all this foolishness, just give them a pass, right? Because you don't want to deal with it, right? You don't want to acknowledge what they did. You don't want to see how it affected everybody else. You be like, listen, just give them a pass and let's try to move on going forward. No, there's some things that you can't sweep this dirt under the carpet, right? Like it's just certain things you can't just sweep it under the carpet and act like it didn't happen. The only way this is really going to be okay and ever be good is y'all need to acknowledge this, right? Because one of the things that happened is like, I'm like, half of these folks they have no credibility with me. I'm like, you can't come tell me nothing. You can't be acting like you have no moral majority on me. You can't act like no, because if you did this, bruh, you can't tell me nothing. You mean nothing. You can't say nothing to me. You can't act like you're
no integrity.
You have no integrity. You can't judge me. If I want to go out here and commit some felonies, you can't tell me nothing because you a felon too. I don't want to hear it. And they need to deal with that, because there's a lot of people that feel that way, right? Like, even though I feel that way, I'm not going to go commit these felonies, and I'm going to still continue to participate in the process because I understand that election matters. But do they know how many folks, they just, especially younger kids, they're like, but didn't my mother tell me to tell the truth and do this and do that? And then you have these people with positions of power that's basically, you know, I was cockeying on all of that, right? And then, so y'all got to do something. No, we're not going to just move past this to unify no nation, because the nation can't get unified until you acknowledge what happened. You know what I'm saying? You got to deal with this.
We teach our kids consequences. Like,
Yes.
You teach your child consequences. So how do you want us to just ignore what happened and then move on to heal and there's no consequence? There's no reaction. For every action, there's a reaction, right? This is consistent. So you want us to ignore that and move on to what? Move on to what? There has to be some consistency. There has to be some there has to be consequences, right? And we're not talking about little consequences here and there, or next time. No, it's not about next time. Those who decided to object, objectives, whatever, are just as guilty as Trump is. And they need to be held accountable. The 162 people that decided that they was going to object this election, they should be held accountable as well. We're having this conversation today. But for actions, we teach our children all the time that we have to make, when you do something wrong, there are consequences. The severity, depending on what you've done, right? Mm-hmm. So you want us to ignore and then the worst part, man has been telling you for 2 months. He's been telling you for 2 months this is what he was going to do. Mm-hmm. And you want us to ignore that? That's what you want us to do?
I agree completely, and I have one word.
And how are we supposed to come together and ignore that?
We can't.
How are you supposed to, what's the word? What's the word? What's the word? You have one word. What's the word?
Oh yeah, you said you had one word.
Oh, sorry. Benghazi.
Oh. Am I frozen?
No. Benghazi.
Yeah, Benghazi.
Mm-hmm. How many years of hearings? How many consequences? How many hours of hearings, finger pointing, investigations, the death toll in the storming attack on the Capitol? is higher than Benghazi. And I expect an even greater response, more investigations. And I agree completely. Without, without consequences, without follow through, there is no unity. These people keep saying it's just going to further divide our country. Our country could not be more divided right now.
Nope.
It cannot be more divided. And I truly believe we have to stomp out this BS. And it has to be through strong, powerful leadership, the kind that we're seeing in a kind of a bipartisan way by the few GOP representatives who have a spine. Dan Newhouse, Liz Cheney, Mitt Romney, some of the people who are standing up. That's the only unity can come from their side. They have to acknowledge what they've participated in, what they have enabled, what they have not denounced. If they want to unify this country, it has to be from the side that is causing the disunity.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And
what can we do to unify the country? Just be like, oh, this is fine. This is okay. We forgive you. We're all love.
No,
it's all love.
We shouldn't have to forgive you in order for this to be right. No, you need to be like, yo, I did something wrong. Take your tongue lashing. You know what I'm saying? Like Bill Burr would say, you gotta own this, take it, and then we can move on. But if you want to be like, let's just move on, and you're not gonna admit to anything or try to, redeem yourself or do better or put in any work. You want to put it all on us, and then they're gonna flip it and try to make us the bad guy because we don't want to go ahead and give you a pass for what you just did. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just this is really not okay. And that's the part that's really that's like hurtful, is that like they want, the people that were victimized, you know what I'm saying, or the people who they want you to say, okay, I'm just let it go. No, we should not have to let it go. You need to take all of the heat from this. This
is an abusive relationship. I've never seen a better analogy for this situation. It's an abusive relationship where they're basically saying, you made me hit you.
Mm-hmm.
You did this. You made this happen.
Yeah, and don't do Trump. It's just gonna be worse. And it's like, and then to say like, oh no, if y'all impeach him, it's gonna be worse. So now you threatening me, dog? Like now you threatening me, right? So because I want,
if you call the police,
I'm gonna be in more trouble. So now you threatening me. Okay.
Yeah. Right. And Matt Gaetz gets on the floor and points the finger at Nancy Pelosi by name, like you said earlier, Sandra, by name, blaming her for this.
Yeah.
Doesn't blame Trump, blames Nancy Pelosi.
Crazy. Just crazy. So now you're going to threaten, you're going to tell me, when I say, no, I'm not going to let this go and give you a pass, then you threaten me. That's what we doing. Okay.
They're perpetual victims. And they're doing the same thing with the big tech companies. Companies, I'm the victim. They're not victims.
Oh my
God. Cory Booker said when he was running for office, I think when they were doing the primary debates or whatever, one of the things he said that was that resonated with me a lot is when he said the power of the people is always greater than the people in power, which means we're the ones that elect these elected officials. They basically effectively work for us, right? Yes. And you can just look at that group that came on the 6th of January. And if that group can organize in such a fashion, and let's not forget that there's still videos coming in. And there was one that was posted today where this woman was giving the layout of the Capitol. So, you have people from within the Capitol, people who work from within, trying to dismantle democracy.
Yes.
So that is a very, very important part of how we move forward and how we look at things. Because at the end of the day, Yes, we can be civically engaged. Yes, we can vote. Yes, we can hold our elected officials accountable. But we need to understand that as a people, there has to be a serious conversation. And it just can't just only be civically. It also has to be with us collectively as a people. And I'm telling you, if we don't get to a point where we're all on the same page, someone mentioned to me about the movie The Handmaid's Tale. And there's part in the clip, I've never seen it, but I'm going to take a look at it. There's a clip, she says, where the woman was looking back and looking at the newspaper clippings and said that you were there the whole time. Yeah. These people will say make these little nuances, make these little narratives, and this whole time building up to what happened, which was a coup. I don't care what anybody says.
Yes, it was.
Attempt to overthrow the government. That's what they were trying to do. That was not a riot. That was not a protest. That was a coup. Let's be clear. Yep. This is not propaganda. This is not a narrative I'm pushing. That's exactly what they were trying to do. The fact that these people had zip ties, they had a bomb that they detected, they killed police officers, that was a complete and utter overthrowing the government. And that's exactly what Trump wanted. Don't let nobody tell you different. That's what he wanted. He was out there making his speeches. He had his whole cronies with him, including his daughter, trying to act like she all Miss Prissy and don't do nothing. And let me make this very clear. Those who said nothing, y'all complicit. Okay? You're part of the problem too.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I was saying to Sandra before you got on, Arnique, that, and I was kind of joking, I've been training for this, but I want to tell you, I read The Handmaid's Tale when I was in college. I highly recommend it. It's a very good book. All of Margaret Atwood, read all of her stuff. It's so good. But this dystopian fiction, right? Dystopian fiction. It's not dystopian. And you start to realize that. When I saw the program, the modern Handmaid's Tale on Hulu, I had to stop watching it because I would go into hysterical sobbing because it was so deeply affecting, because I did see it. We were talking about the American Taliban, 12 years ago, right? We were talking about the Taliban in Afghanistan, but then we had the American Taliban here, this Tea Party movement, right? Which is now turned into Trumpism, which just try to take over our government. And what do they want? When they put Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons I did start training, and I know this is going to sound crazy, is that my ex is British, my daughter is British and an American, and I was just so affected by this, and kind of trying to see what would happen. I was like, get her passport. Y'all are going, but I'm gonna stay. Like, I will always fight for this country. Like, I was like, am I gonna have to be like this character who is like, basically, a freedom fighter for democracy in the United States? And I was like, you know what? If it's gonna come to that, I better be ready. It's very good motivation for working out. Let me say that. But seriously, where, I know you, Sandra, you probably work with a lot of asylum seekers. I work with a lot of asylum seekers. I think it's really interesting work to do, but I don't see myself as being a person who would ever seek asylum. A lot of people say, oh, we should go to Canada, just like what Representative Crow said today. What does this country mean to us?
Yeah.
What does democracy mean to us? I swore an oath to the Constitution on December 12th, 2006. And I take that very seriously as an attorney, as a human being. And I will not be silent. I will not be complacent, and I will not enable the destruction of our democracy and the destruction of this Constitution and of our republic. I will not.
Yeah.
I will not, but I believe in institutions. I believe in institutions.
Yeah. And you know, we have to wrap up. But one of the things, you know, people always tell me like, oh, you know, the system failed, and you know, and like this is the lesson that we should have learned from the Trump presidency. I'm like, that's not the lesson. To me, that's not the lesson to learn. The lesson that we need to learn is that you can't give power to people like him, right? Because if the system didn't hold up, then it would have completely crumbled, right? He tried to totally just like, I mean, he just kept poking the bear. He's like, oh, I'm gonna mess this up. I'm gonna mess this up. I'm gonna put my friends in the job. I mean, he just kept doing everything, and we were able to hold up because, you know, you have checks and balances and other people in place that kind of saved him from himself. And imagine that there were people that was saving him from himself, that, you know, this wasn't worse, right? So it's not the system that's wrong. It's like you have to pay attention to the people who you give this kind of power to, right? One thing, you can't give it to petty people. You have to give it to someone that has a conscience, who has credibility, who believes in this, right? And I think that's the lesson, is that you can't give another person that's like Trump this kind of power, because everyone else, you know, you would exercise some level of decorum, and you'd be like, you know what? Even though I can do this, I'm not going to do this, right? And that's the kind of person that you need. Because you can do it, don't mean you do it. There's a whole lot of stuff we can do, but we don't do them. You know what I'm saying? We're like, you know, yeah, I could do it, but how much sense that's going to make? And that's not for the greater good. So to me, it's like we as voters and people that are putting folks in power have to pay attention to the person in power. And you got to listen to what they're saying in between all of that talk and all of that chatter. And you have to see them for who they are. You can't have a person that doesn't have character to have a job like the presidency, or even Mitch McConnell. Like he's trying to get a pass and all of this foolishness. Happen. You know what I'm saying, bro, man? You know, you trying to act like he trying to be all nice, like, oh yeah, I support him. No, bro, you're part of the problem too, because there's a lot of things that you allowed to happen. Had you not allowed them to happen, we would not be in this place. I don't even think we'd have been in this place where Trump would have been president. But you know, he has a lot. His hands have blood on them too.
And I think the lesson.
And
sorry, go ahead.
All of them. Every single what's his name again? What's the other one that was on the floor talking about some, oh yeah, I'm really considering impeachment too. Lindsey Graham. Dude, you've been so far up Trump's behind the entire time, and now you realize he wasn't no good. Like, to me, it's offensive. I take it offensively that now it's like they almost have an epiphany. Oh yeah, oh my goodness. It's offensive to me. They knew, they've seen his behavior. And so, you know, when Betsy DeVos decides she want to resign, and this person decide they want to resign, like, dude, like, what you want, a cookie? Y'all want a cookie? I mean, I'm confused. Like, what is that supposed to mean? It's just this constant, it's disrespectful. It's this constant disrespect. And like the playing of like the intelligence with people. It's just awful to me. Awful. You know, whoever Richard is, who's in our chat room or whatever, we need to give him some.
Richard need a shout out.
Richard and I went to law school together. He's also texting me. He's got some good information.
Yes, he does.
He's giving us all this information.
We can barely hear you, Nani. We lost your video too. Go ahead, Laura.
I have to say the lesson for me.
Richard on point. Yes, he does. He on point.
Sorry. Hold on, wait.
Hold on.
Okay.
Go ahead, Laura.
I was going to say that the lesson that I take away from this is that there's a huge difference between democracy and populism.
Mm-hmm.
And what we need in this country is more democracy, not less. Mm-hmm. Somebody, and I'm sure Richard's going to tell me who it is, said that we have to learn that the South is not red, it's voter suppressed.
Exactly.
And this is true, I think, of every state.
Yep.
And the answer, I'm sorry, is a new Voting Rights Act.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the provisions of a new Voting Rights Act must be that no state can restrict voter registration up until the very day of the election.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no reason in this day and age that people should be purged from voter rolls,
Mm-hmm.
not know it, not get into the the polling place and not be able to cast their vote as a US citizen. That is undemocratic. And that is how the Republicans and these populists have suppressed the vote for the entire history of this country. And the Black population in this country and the Native American population in this country and the Hispanic population of this country have felt that their vote doesn't matter because it's been so suppressed that it's like, why even make the effort? And I get it. And I think that, with the movement that Stacey Abrams has started with Fair Fight, it demonstrates the power of these diverse voices, and that it demonstrates to us the absolute need to ensure that every eligible voter can vote. And it's all about democracy. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds very pie in the sky, but that is the only answer to this. That's the only way we're going to fight corporate money. It's the only way we're going to fight populism. It's to get more people to the polls, more people empowered to understand that their vote matters, their voice matters, and that we will hold our elected officials accountable.
Yep. And
that's my lesson.
No more of this running unopposed nonsense. Like, we're not doing that.
No.
If we, if we just gotta get our name on the ballot or something to run against this running unopposed is pure foolishness. You need to work to keep your job.
It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And I noticed that you had mentioned on your Facebook page, Laura, about your community thing.
Yeah, we started off with that.
It irritates me because I had the same thing, and it's like, well, I'm confused. It's like you let who you want to say whatever, and Sandra and I had a discussion, and I don't know if we're allowed to talk about this, but I'm gonna put it out there. But we had a discussion about who is the chair of the Florida Democratic Party now. I have my concerns. Someone who used to be a Republican now is a Democrat. Not saying that those things can't change. I get that. But, you mentioned the radio with the Hispanic radio station, and this is a Cuban. Is he Cuban? Manny's Cuban?
Yes, I think so. Isn't he? Right? Man, he used to be the mayor of Miami. I know he was the mayor of Miami.
Yeah, I remember that he used to be the mayor of Miami too. So my thing is if they're trying to get him in to change and flip the narrative, we have to tell you, Laura, one of the things that Sandra and I discussed is the messaging was completely and utterly off this time around with the Democratic Party. There was really no messaging. And so I agree. There was no messaging. There weren't any. I mean, no one really combated the fascists, or not the fascists, but the socialist thing that was going on in Miami. There was no one there to combat that. So I'm assuming they're bringing in Manny Diaz to kind of flip it and change it around. But my issue is it's not just going to take the messaging. There has to be extra components to really get an overall overhaul in Miami. So to me, it's like, we're talking about disenfranchisement, we're talking about voter suppression, but there's other things at play too, and that's some of the things that we can't ignore. We have to make sure that we look at those things also.
Misinformation.
Yeah.
All the time, and that's how it works for them. It works. Mm-hmm. It works. You know what I mean? If you can get somebody distracted enough to kind of get in and infiltrate, that's what you're gonna do. I mean, like the thing with the Capitol, they have people inside trying to dismantle from within. And that's dangerous. And it's a dangerous position to be in. You think for a second that these Congress people are not afraid of being back on the Senate floor or on the House floor? They know that there's people working from within. A lot of them have come out to say that they have helped. This was like an inside job. And imagine going to work every day knowing that there's someone in there that can potentially put you in danger. So I think that we, moving forward, as we look to be more civically engaged, you always, I think one of the main things that's important, that you have to meet people where they at. You can't just assume everybody understands the process and assume everybody understands how politics works. You have to meet people where they at, and I think people appreciate that when you do that, because then they realize that you are listening to them, and you want them to be engaged as much as you are. How we're going to get that message out, I don't know. But I'm reading my Stacey Abrams books. I'm learning from that organization that she worked with. And at this point, all I want is someone to really represent the people. Yeah. I'm not interested in the parties anymore, because let's be honest, the Democrats have some of their downfalls too. I'm just interested. If you're going to run for an elected position, you have to understand you're working for the people. You're not working for yourself.
That's right. The people need a lobbyist.
They show you. You may create that, Sandra. Create a lobbyist company.
I need to get some merch.
I think it should be my campaign manager.
Yeah, yep. You need a lobbyist. I'm telling you, these folks, they go in there to protect their own interests, not the folks, man. You got to work for the people.
It's terrible. It's
all right. I know we all have meetings. I have Dolphin Democrats have a meeting at 7. I believe you have a
Girl Scouts.
She got Girl Scouts at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much, Richard, for all that information. I screenshot what you put up there, because I'm like, I gotta get into these links to get all of that information. So thank you very much for
Can you put and paste his thing? Because once it's gone, do we lose it?
No, it's recorded.
If you're recording it,
it's recorded, so I'll still have it. And then like I said, I also took a screenshot of it, so I have it. And I can.
Yeah, I need the link. Send me the link. So it should be on point. I gotta get what Richard got.
Richard, thank you so much, Laura. So just our quick thoughts, and and we're gonna go for that. We're gonna sign off. We actually made it through like a whole regular hour of show with all.
AT&T can't stop us.
Here an hour and a half, 5:30 to 6:30.
It was a full show. It was a lot to talk about. We did really, we did good.
Right.
Good to have all that perspective. And I'm man, this is a time of reckoning. I mean, America got to figure this out. And that's my final thought. This is a time of reckoning. You got to figure this out. We've been here before, because I was a history major, so I did all, I know about the 60s civil rights movement, all of that stuff, and some of the same things that was being said then are being said right now. But the difference is, right, even though there was some visual stuff in the 60s, people are seeing this stuff happen in real time, right? Because of social media and all that. You're seeing this happen in real time. We watched a guy die, right? In real time in May of last year. So if you didn't know, or you didn't believe this was happening, you saw it, right? And when, you had these FBI people talking about how they were trying to let folks know, no, domestic terrorism is a real problem in the United States. We have to do something about it, right? And you were like, oh no, they're making it up. No, you saw these people climbing the walls, okay? You saw these people with busting down windows and breaking glass, going into the building. So domestic terrorism is something that's real. So even if there was a way for you to act like you didn't know what was going on before, it's too in your face right now for you to not to deal with it. So this is definitely a time of reckoning.
Well, my final thought is, please, for the love of all that is holy, wear your mask.
Wear your mask.
Wash your hands. Please, there's people out here dying for no reason because people refuse to wear their mask. Just know you can take your mask off in your car when you get back in your car, but please just wear your mask. I just found a study the other day about Moderna that it only gives you 1 year of protection. That's the Moderna shot. That's not the Pfizer shot. But just all in all, just please wear your mask. I mean, but not for you, if you don't care about you, but care about other people, just please wear your mask. There's too many people who are dying unnecessarily because people refuse to wear their mask. I'm just begging you all, just please wear your mask. That's all I'm asking.
My final thought is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And I believe that there will be a backlash. and the backlash is ours. This is the chance for to have real momentum for a true progressive democratic movement that gives power back to the people where it belongs. And that's where I'm going to choose to keep my mindset whenever things get dark, and it's been dark. But I believe that I believe that I believe in us. That's it. I believe in us, the good people of this country.
Yep, 80 million of it. 80 million of them made the right choice. So, you know, and I'm not going to say the 75 million didn't, but, you know, it was 75 million, but it was 80 million of us because we knew that, you know, you got to believe in us. We did that. We were like, nah, this is not going to happen. So,
and the 80 million and the 75 million, the 80 million is basically protecting the 75 million, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we like that. Yeah, we saving them from themselves.
Right. Exactly.
We're protecting you from yourself, and that means that we still care about you. So, you know, you may have made that decision, but the overall majority is looking out for you too. So, I think if we present it that way, people will be a little bit more malleable. A little bit tastes better in the palate. But it's not that we looking out for all y'all.
We don't let children can't raise themselves. That's why they got parents. There has to be a grown-up in the room, okay? So I'm gonna just tell you, if I gotta hurt your feelings for you to get this message, no, the 80 million people were the grown-ups in the room. That's why you gotta have grown-ups in the room, okay? Period.
Well, that's right. We're here to save you from yourself. How about that?
You can't let the children raise themselves. You know, they would eat cake all day. So, all
right. Well, you guys enjoy your other meetings later, and you know, we'll pick up again next week. Thank you, Laura, for coming and filling in.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's always awesome. Thank you so much. Good night. Good night, ladies.
Bye.